Administration now reportedly considering a new plan to keep migrants arriving at our southern border in Mexico until cases are processed. Here's the president earlier today.
If we find that it's uncontrollable, Josh, if we find that it gets to a level where we are going to lose control or where people are going to start getting hurt, we will close entry into the country for a period of time until we can get it under control.
To the entire border?
The whole border. I mean, the whole border.
We've got Fox team coverage all over this. Alicia Acuna has the latest on the caravan. But first, we start with Kevin Corke, who is live in West Palm Beach, Florida, where the president is spending Thanksgiving at Mar-a-Lago. Kevin?
Ebony, you're right. And Alicia will get to this, obviously, as well in her report. But make no mistake about it, the clashes just south of the U.S.-Mexico border are very serious. You're talking about potentially thousands of migrants making their way all the way up from Honduras, all the way through the country of Mexico, many of them being deposited just over the border in Tijuana. The clashes are important because, as you pointed out in the lead-in, the president is trying to create this buffer between the migrants who are trying to make their way here to the U.S. and obviously the U.S. border area. Now, the area near San Ysidro has actually been shut down. Traffic backing up, some say for miles back into Mexico. The real issue here is if we cannot control entry, we have to do something. That's what White House officials have said consistently. That's also a message the president shared again today.
We're going to have a strong border. Our southern border is going to be very strong. I'm not going to let the military be taken advantage of. You ask the people in Tijuana, Mexico. They opened up with wide arms. Just come in, let me help you, let us take care of you. And within 2 days, now they're going crazy to get them out.
So what are you going to try to do here? Can you, at least by program, keep them away? Or will you simply work with the Mexican government to try to make a more orderly approach to the border by these potentially thousands of migrants? That's the real question the administration is trying to answer here tonight. But as you pointed out in your intro, the president is steadfast and determined to secure the border. Ebony?
Absolutely. Kevin, by the way, very classy look with the bow tie, and happy Thanksgiving to you, my friend.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
Leland?
All right, we'll get a little bit more now on exactly what is happening at the border and the troops who are showing up there. Alicia Acuna following that story from our Denver bureau. Hi, Alicia.
Hi, Leland. Today, after the president talked to U.S. troops overseas on that Thanksgiving teleconference call, he also addressed the use of force, saying that if necessary on the southern border, the active duty troops that are there could use force.
If they have to, they're going to use lethal force. I've given the okay. Yeah, if they have to, I hope they don't have to. But, you know, you're dealing with a minimum of 500 serious criminals. So I'm not going to let the military be taken advantage of. I have no choice.
In an off-camera conversation with reporters on Wednesday, Secretary of Defense James Mattis explained the role of the nearly 5,800 members of the military at the border, and then that is to provide support to the National Guard and Border Patrol. He also points out that most of them are not armed and do not have arrest authority, adding, quote, if someone's beating on a border patrolman and if we were in position to have to do something about it, we could stop them from beating on them and take him over and deliver him to a border patrolman who would then arrest him for it. U.S. border inspectors continue to process asylum seekers at the Tijuana-San Ysidro crossing at a rate of about 100 per day. When members of the caravan began arriving, the waiting list was already at 3,000. Doctors there say they are seeing multiple health issues in the crowd of people who have traveled thousands of miles, often by foot. Our crew in Mexico talked to Jorge Lopez, who's been told by others it's not going to get easier.
He told me, like, the farther we go, the tougher the things and all the things will happen to us, like the tougher the road will go.
Secretary Mattis says the cost of the active duty presence at the border, Leland, is about $72 million and will likely go up. Leland?
All right, Alicia Acuna in Denver following this. Alicia, thanks. Ebony's got more.
For much more on all of this, we're going to bring back Philip Wegman of the Washington Examiner. Philip, thanks for coming back and joining us. Oh, Philip, I think we might have a little bit of an audio issue. Let me make sure I can hear you. Okay. Okay. So, there you are. There you are.
Finally.
We've got some contact here. All
We
right,
had
Philip.
turkeys in the audio board.
So the president essentially is sounding here like the very thing that most would say got him elected to the presidency. He is articulating a very strong position on our border. Some would say he's escalating that position, now even saying, if needed, deadly force on our border to ensure its security. We know this is excellent political strategy for the president's base. What do you think will be the political play ultimately for the broader country?
Well, taking a closer look at the stay in Mexico policy that's being proposed right now, I think what this shows is that now that Democrats control the House of Representatives, the chances of getting any meaningful immigration reform or the wall that he has long promised, the chances of that are going down. And I think that you're going to see President Trump acting more unilaterally because in the run-up to 2020, he needs to show his base that he's taking this issue seriously, and he's going to be doing that through these individual executive actions and changing policy on his own. So this is going to play well, I think, with Republicans, and the president sees this as honoring his promise to take the law and order immigration stance that he promised seriously.
So when we look back at some parts of this year, Philip, one place that even some Republicans said the president might have been wading into a bit of trouble was, of course, the detention of some of these children, you know, with the border, all of these things. And some people said maybe the president was going a bit too far there. Others liking what they heard from the president, liking, again, that tough stance by any means necessary to protect the border. Where do you see this particular stance, the possibly opening up deadly force if necessary to protect the border troops? Do you feel like that will have any blowback around some Republicans, or will this be widely applauded and accepted and encouraged by the Republican Party?
Well, right now we have a pressure cooker of a situation. There are somewhere near 6,000 migrants on our southern border right now. A lot of those ports of entry have been closed, which escalates things because those used to be the sort of safety valve to ease the pressure. I think that something eventually is going to happen, and there are going to be massive political ramifications. I'm not certain whether the administration knows right now whether or not the use of lethal force is going to be a policy or if it's an option. Earlier, we heard from Mattis that, our troops on the border are very much in a support role, but it's only going to be a matter of time before something happens, and then the political blowback from that is something that this administration is going to have to deal with here in D.C.
To that point, though, Philip, is this more political savviness from the president in being able to capitalize on this point from a rhetorical standpoint, with all likelihood saying that it will never really come to this? Is that your kind of take on this?
At this point, it definitely is. I think that the president is, he knows what he's doing as far as the rhetoric is concerned. We heard him a moment ago talking about shutting down the entire border, which sounds good in a tweet or in a soundbite, but whether or not that's going to be an actual policy, whether or not that's actually possible, remains to be seen. As far as the Remain in Mexico policy goes, though, this is something that he sees as an opportunity to crack down on what he thought other administrations let run rampant, specifically the sort of catch and release mentality of the past. So he, I think, with the Remain in Mexico policy, is actually taking a step towards a real reform, while I'm not certain the rhetoric will actually pan out as far as deadly force.
Philip, let's look at the politics on the other side of the aisle when it comes to this issue. Do you, because many would say that the Democrats were able to have a little bit of political runway because the president went so far with the children around the immigration. How do you see the asylum aspect of this playing into the president's stance? Do you think that from the Democrat side, they will try to use this as an opportunity to say the president is overreaching again on the issue of immigration? He's not being that compassionate conservative that many on the right would like to see. Do you see this as an opportunity for them as Democrats to lean in here?
Well, we all remember those horrific images of children in cages down at the southern border. It is important to note, however, that that was not a policy that started with this administration. In fact, that was something that was carried on during his predecessor's tenure. That said, I think it's going to be very interesting what Democrats are going to do, because in my opinion, they wasted the child separation issue because they turned it into an argument about abolishing ICE, even though ICE wasn't even at the border. So this time, I think the gamesmanship and the strategy has to focus on the actual policy rather than sort of running away with a shiny object, which makes for perhaps a good campaign slogan, but doesn't actually address the issue. So I think they're definitely going to try and make the most of this, but this time I think they're going to have to pay closer attention to what's actually going on.
And final question for you, Philip. Again, the beef between Chief Justice Roberts and President Trump really started because President Trump did not like a circuit court's ruling around this asylum issue for him. But that seems to be consistently where the court is with the president immigration, right? Acknowledging he's got wide scope and range, but asylum is not something that is in any presidential's authority to lessen. So ultimately, where do you think the president and the judiciary, maybe even going up to the Supreme Court, will be on this issue of asylum if it continues?
I definitely think that we're going to see, some fireworks at the Supreme Court eventually on this issue. But to, the point that I was trying to make to Leland earlier on, when you have President Trump criticizing the judiciary, that's a fundamentally liberal mentality. Because if you're a constitutional conservative, you want the court to do their job and read the law and read the Constitution, not prejudge outcomes. We don't put judges on the Supreme Court because they're going to rule the way we want. We put judges on the Supreme Court.
Is that,
would be activism.
What they say?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. You put them on the court to do their job and to defend the Constitution.
All right. Well, thank you for a double dose this Thanksgiving Day of Philip Wegman from the Washington Examiner. Thank you, Philip.
Thank you, Ebony.
All right, Leland.
All right, he earned his turkey dinner. And a Fox News alert, just learning this on Thanksgiving. House Republicans issuing subpoenas to former FBI Director James Comey, former Attorney General Loretta Lynch. Lawmakers want closed-door depositions on decisions they made during the 2016 election. Now James Comey, and this is what we are learning on Thanksgiving, is responding. Lauren Blanchard live in Washington. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Leland. Well, Comey's attorney confirmed the former FBI director has been asked to appear on December 3rd, while reports show Loretta Lynch has been asked to appear on December 4th. Comey tweeting this morning confirming the subpoena, writing in part, quote, "I will resist a closed door thing because I've seen enough of their selective leaking and distortion. Let's have a hearing and invite everyone to see." While Comey's attorney issuing a statement, quote, "While the authority for congressional subpoenas is broad, it does not cover the right to misuse closed hearings as a political stunt to promote political as opposed to legislative agendas." Democrats have long wanted this to be in full view, and Comey has offered to testify before, only as long as it was open. But Republicans, including the chairman of the committee, Republican Bob Goodlatte, have insisted on closed door.
We'll make all of the transcribed interviews available to the public so that they can see exactly what we've been investigating, but we're not going to have him testify in public so that other people can see him testify, and then suddenly their testimony seems to match up with his.
The last-minute demand comes as Chairman Goodlatte is retiring, and Democrats will soon control the House Judiciary Committee. These subpoenas would be his final act as chairman to make Comey and Lynch appear in a closed-door session. The current top Democrat on the committee, Jerry Nadler, said last week it was unfortunate that the outgoing majority was resorting to these tactics. Goodlatte says he wants to question Comey and Lynch on the 2016 presidential race and how they handled the Clinton email case and the Trump and Russia collusion case. Leland?
All right, it's got to happen in the next month if it's going to happen. Lauren Blanchard in Washington, where it will be must-see TV if it does. Lauren, thank you. A lot more on this coming up in the hour. Former prosecutor, defense attorney Randy Zellin reading through the briefs on both sides. His take in a few minutes. Ebony?
New dangers are threatening the recovery effort after those devastating California wildfires. Even that which brings relief to crews and first responders also brings new problems. A Thanksgiving meal being served on the other side of the world. NATO troops stationed in Afghanistan celebrating in Kabul today, attending a decorated feast. NATO ended its main combat operation there back in 2014. Since then, it's provided training and assistance to Afghan security forces.
New concerns now in California as steady rain is complicating the search for victims of the deadly Camp Fire and bringing the threat of dangerous mudslides in areas that the fire has already torn through. Meanwhile, volunteers are serving up Thanksgiving meals to so many who have lost so much. Jeff Paul, Chico, California, at one such area. Boy, Jeff, Inspiring to see all these folks out here, even in the rain.
Yeah, it's incredible, and Mother Nature is working in their favor. It hasn't rained much today, and as a result, we've got lots of volunteers out here in the Chico community. Thousands of people coming out here to cook up Thanksgiving dinner for the folks who have lost so much. These folks out here right now are loading up some of those turkeys into the smoker. They've got all sorts of fixins, and this isn't the only community and spot where they're fixing food and getting ready to serve the victims of this terrible, terrible fire, the Camp Fire. Thousands of people displaced from their homes. In fact, we've seen a lot of celebrity chefs out here. Guy Fieri was out here, and Jose Andres was out here, and he's cooking up food for everybody. And they say they're doing this in part to obviously feed people on Thanksgiving and give them some sort of resemblance of the holiday, but also they're sending a message.
The best thing they can do is to sit in a table with a stranger, or even in a table with
Yeah, and like we said before, this isn't the only community that is doing something. We've heard Sierra Nevada Brewery is going to be feeding some of those victims of the Camp Fire, and it's going to be going on all day. Again, a huge effort out here. It takes a huge crowd, thousands of people giving up their Thanksgiving holiday to make sure some of those folks who have nothing at least have a little slice of this holiday. Leland?
Inspiring on that end, and yet there is so much devastation up in Paradise. How's the search going for those who perhaps didn't make it out?
Yeah, we were just up there a little earlier today, kind of checking out what's going on, and authorities tell us they're still up there around the clock. Doesn't matter if it's rain, shine, the holiday, they'll be up there. 800 people, we're told, involved in those search and recovery efforts. The latest number is 83 people dead. That's up 2 from the day before. The number that continues to fluctuate are the number of unaccounted for. Yesterday it was 870. Now it's down to 563. They're hoping to get that number further and further down, but they're going to be out there throughout this whole process trying to get this community back on its feet. Leland?
Yeah, and just hoping the rain doesn't create any kind of dangerous mudslides. Jeff Paul, Chico, California. Jeff, thank you. Thanks to the folks behind you.
Back on the East Coast, a horrific story out of New Jersey. New twist in a homicide investigation after a family of 4 was killed in a mansion fire on Tuesday. Now, police arresting the brother of one of the victims, accusing him of igniting a fire in his own home 11 miles away. Brian Yinnis joins me live from the New York Bureau. Brian?
Hi, Ebony. A tough story. 2 arsons at 2 homes owned by 2 brothers. One brother and his family are dead, and now there are many questions left for the other. 51-year-old Paul Canero has not officially been named a suspect in his brother's death, but Paul was arrested for aggravated arson Wednesday morning. He's suspected of starting a fire at his own home hours before his brother's family was found dead in their burning home. Investigators believe Paul used gasoline to set his home on fire while his wife and 2 daughters were inside. No one was hurt in that home. 7.5 hours later, though, 11 miles away from Paul's burning home, his brother, 50-year-old Keith Canero, was found shot dead on his front lawn. That house was also burning. Keith's wife, Jennifer, their 11-year-old son, Jesse, and 8-year-old daughter, Sophia, were found dead inside, badly burned. Police believe that they were targeted, that this was not random. They also say the family of 4 was murdered before the inferno was started in the home. Both brothers, Paul and Keith, were partners at a technology firm called Square One. Police are investigating if and how else these 2 fires are connected.
This is one of the most heinous cases that I think they have ever investigated, that we have ever seen. They want to give justice to the Canero family. That sometimes that term is thrown around pretty commonly in trite fashion, but we really mean it, and we really hope that we can solve this.
A vigil was held last night in Colts Neck, New Jersey. The mayor said the Caneros were well-known, Ebony, in town, often seen at shops or school sporting events. A very difficult time for that family and their friends this Thanksgiving.
Difficult indeed, Brian. So many prayers for the families and the community there as a whole. Thank you, Brian.
Of course.
Leland?
An American missionary killed on an island cut off from the rest of the world. The efforts now to recover his body are becoming harder. What happened on that remote island in the Indian Ocean?
A new warning from Saudi Arabia, with the kingdom saying any criticism of the Crown Prince over the death of Washington Post contributor Jamal Khashoggi crosses a, quote, red line. and that it will not tolerate any calls to hold him accountable for the killing. President Trump weighing in today.
I don't know if anyone's going to be able to conclude that the Crown Prince did it. Whether he did or whether he didn't, he denies it vehemently. His father denies it, the king, vehemently. The CIA doesn't say they did it. They do point out certain things, and in pointing out those things, you can conclude that maybe he did or maybe he didn't.
Benjamin Hall is following this story live from London. Benjamin?
Yeah, hi, Ebony. Ever since Tuesday, when President Trump released his statement saying that the alliance with Saudi Arabia is more important than anything else, he's been explaining his reasons. And he did that in great detail today, talking about national security, about the economy, about jobs, about pushing back against Iran, about the war in terror. And all those reasons were why Saudi Arabia was such an important ally. He went on also saying this.
They're vehemently denying it. And we have hundreds of thousands of jobs. Do people really want me to give up hundreds of thousands of jobs? And frankly, if we went by this standard, we wouldn't be able to have anybody as an ally.
Encouraged by President Trump's support, Saudi Arabia has also spoken out today for the first time since the statement, warning now that criticism of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman moving forward is a red line. Their foreign minister saying that calls for the Crown Prince to be held accountable for the killing would not be tolerated. And yesterday, General Mattis also commented, saying, presidents don't always get the freedom to work with unblemished partners in all things. We're not going to apologize for our human rights stance, nor are we going to apologize for working with Saudi Arabia when it's necessary for the good of innocent people who are in trouble. There are, however, already repercussions across the world over Khashoggi's murder. And today, Denmark and Finland announced they would be halting exports of military equipment, both because of the Khashoggi murder, but also because of the worsening situation in Yemen. And they follow Germany in doing so. So what we've really seen recently is President Trump laying out his bigger picture politics, saying that the relationship with Saudi Arabia is decades old and it needs to go forward for decades in the future because there are so many bigger things at stake here. And he's laying that out regularly now. Ebony?
Benjamin Hall live in London. Thank you, Benjamin. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
All right, with that, we bring in Christian Whitten, former deputy senior advisor in the Trump and George W. Bush administrations. Nice to see you, sir. Appreciate it on Thanksgiving. The president said if we went by this standard, we would not have anyone as an ally. Some truth to that?
Yeah, I think so. If you look at other U.S. allies who are considered important, you have Turkish President Erdogan. He has a ton of journalists and other political opponents rotting in jails. You have Philippines, a treaty ally, Rodrigo Duterte, the president there, who actually sanctions extrajudicial killings by his police of alleged drug offenders. Look back in history. We were allies with Joseph Stalin in World War II, one of history's greatest mass murderers. We didn't do it because we liked him, but because it was important strategically.
Fair to say foreign policy can be a messy business, especially it was during the Cold War. Is what's happening really any different than what's happened for the past 20 or 30 years of administration sort of turning a blind eye to the Saudis because we need them? Perhaps President Trump's being more explicit about the quid pro quo there, but these things happened under the Bush administration. They happened under the Obama administration. The Saudis were bad actors under the Clinton and Reagan administration.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it quite a blind eye. President Bush, more so than anyone during the Cold War, any president that I can remember, or Democrats, Bill Clinton or Barack Obama, has called out the Saudis repeatedly, discussed this repeatedly in public. I can't recall ever sanctioning
there was never an inflection point, though, with any of those administrations vis-a-vis the Saudis.
Sure there were. If you look at the Philippines, I mean, the Filipinos had a leading dissident assassinated at Manila airport. People were constantly being thrown in jail. The difference, I think, and the difference today is you look at regimes, governments with which we are allied tend to be going in the direction of reform, including the Saudis, who've let women drive, who have introduced some reforms, and even MBS, the Crown Prince, controversial as he is, has talked about pulling back on the Saudis' export of Wahhabism. If you contrast that to our communist adversaries of the Cold War or today, Iran, which is totally unredeemable, unreformable, and much more tyrannical, much more repressive than Saudi or some of our other unpalatable allies.
Well, there is a richness in this sense, and some of the people who are the very loudest critics of the president on this one are the same people who are the loudest cheerleaders of President Obama cozying up to the Iranians with the Iran nuclear deal, and that was a regime that had the blood of hundreds of Americans on their hands. A tangential point, this was a tweet from Tulsi Gabbard, who is the congresswoman from Hawaii, both on the Foreign Affairs Committee and on Armed Services. It's Thanksgiving, so we're going to edit the language. Hey, at real Donald Trump, being Saudi Arabia's, there you go, is not America first. From the woman who cozied up to Bashar Assad and thinks he's just fine.
Yeah, that's stunning, and it's too bad. I mean, this is someone who also is a major in the National Guard, a member of the United States military, saying that about her commander-in-chief. I would encourage her to resign her commission if she's going to talk like that and set that kind of example. And, the president really is just trying to do the right thing. We have serious adversaries, challenges in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia plays an important role. It spends $70 billion a year on
Saudi
defense.
Arabia plays an important role, but truth is an important ideal as well. And as the president keeps going, well, it may be that they did it, it may be that they didn't. You can draw a lot of conclusions, you may not. It's the dithering back and forth on this. Why not, as it appears to be, that there's conclusive intelligence by the CIA and others about what happened in intercepts? Why not come out and lay out the evidence and say to the Saudis, we really have a problem with this? You don't hear that kind of language from the president. You don't hear him angry that for 2 weeks the Saudis told them, oh, we have no idea about this, we didn't do it, when it turned out they knew exactly what happened there.
Well, but nonetheless, the administration has been very clear. They've thought
I'm
the
not
Saudis
talking about
have
the
done this
administration. I'm talking
all
about the president
along.
himself.
Well, and say the president sent Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to
again, Christian,
Saudi Arabia.
That's still not. That's still not.
Well, you think you know the answer here, but you don't. The CIA. Dissidents at the CIA leaked to the Washington Post their anti-Trump political warfare
I'm not saying
tool,
whether I know the truth or not. I'm saying
judgment based not on actual intelligence, but on supposition. Our $50 billion a year intelligence community is making guesses.
Well, first of all, our $50 billion a year intelligence community always makes guesses. Sometimes they're right. Sometimes
usually they should use some objective information. And what these intercepts you're describing, that's been described in a Turkish paper that is pro-Erdogan.
I'm not talking about those intercepts.
Not take that as fact.
Christian, it's very simple, though, that there is a time that the president said, the Saudis said, we had no idea about this. We didn't do it. For a long time, the Saudis said he left the consulate alive. And we all know that they knew that wasn't true. The president of the United States saying you can't lie about these kind of things has weight. You got 30 seconds. Why didn't he do it? Why shouldn't he do it?
The president has expressed repeatedly the truth as he understands the truth, which is that Saudi Africans
Wait, you're the one who just told. Wait, hold on. You're the one who just told. You just told me the truth isn't understandable or not. You're the one.
I am saying the same thing the president is saying, which we don't know if the Crown Prince ordered this or not. And I think it is extraordinarily reckless to suggest that we break one of our most fundamentally important alliances in a region that is full of conflict. The president is doing what is absolutely necessary. It's fine for senators to preen.
Christian,
it's not fine for the president. He's responsible for defending us.
You got way more than 30 seconds for the last word. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks.
Ebony?
An American missionary is killed off the coast of India. Efforts are underway to recover John Allen Cho's body. Police saying the 26-year-old was killed by a tribe on the remote island of North Sentinel. Amy Kellogg is following the story.
Hi, Ebony. Well, the president of the mission with which John Allen Cho was affiliated said that his journey was, quote, a dream that went wrong. And a friend of Cho said that really he had felt that, quote, bringing the gospel to this very remote part of the world had been worth the risk. Now, the island, which is in the Andaman and Nicobar Island chain off the coast of India, is so little known, very little known about the tribe, the North Sentinelese, who he wanted to convert. Experts believe it's the most isolated tribe on the planet, and next to nothing is known about their language, believed to be called Sentinelese, so it is hard to imagine even communicating with them. Now, Cho had lived both in Washington State and Alabama and was said by friends to have been a tremendous adventurer and felt closer to God when he was in the outdoors. He apparently had planned this trip for some time and was turned back on an earlier attempt to reach the island after being shot at by one of the tribesmen whose arrow pierced his waterproof Bible. But he went back another time bearing gifts, and that time he was killed. An Indian anthropologist explained another reason around the sensitivity about approaching this tribe.
If I go there, I'm a product of so many antibiotics, so I'm carrying so many germs with me. If I even shake hand with them, I may pass thousands and hundreds of bacteria to them. And they can die with influenza also. A simple thing like flu may kill them because they are not immune to anything.
Now, Ebony, Chau's family posted a message on Instagram saying that they forgive those responsible for Chau's murder. They also said that they would like to see the 7 people, 5 fishermen and 2 others who assisted Chau on his ill-fated trip, be released from prison because they say Chau went of his own free will. Others should not be punished for what he did. Ebony.
Amy Kellogg in Milan. Leland?
Oh, wouldn't we want to know what is in them? President Trump has submitted written answers about an investigation he's long insisted is a witch hunt. He keeps saying that. But will it be enough to put an end to Robert Mueller's Russia probe?